Kurepe tope, kua karangatia ka timata tātou piki, I tēnei wāpuni. Māku e haka tūpero e te tātou hui, e roto i nā whaka. Titi kura, ko nā ko te ora te tahenga o te toto paua, ko tō mana paua, ko tō mana o. Ki tō kiri toto ki tō mātāni ho, kātau ko te hakauri o haumanu, ka ora ko te iranga nau hia nei, kurea ki te haura, kurea ki te waiora, taku aho matatini, taku iho matarei e tau anu ko tō Māori tau, tihei, Māori o. E ka huri pōtika waku mihi, e ki te hunga mahi, a te mākua e whetūrangi tia, kua riru atu ki te ripo haranui, i waho o mākuna, o te ngā tōtara haimata, o te wānui, anei rā ngā tōtara māhuri, e haka pehana ki a kōtuma, e ko waiho mai mātou ki rungi te matu o te whenua, te rai tahi wā, ka kia ke nei, e kore e haka hua e ingoa kei maku i wetahi ki muri. Rangi e tikana, ki a mihia nui tia, ka rangatira i wā tura ki roto Ngāti Kuri. Ira i te rāne. Ai tā e tahi, ko te last o ngā Mohicans, tērā. Mate kawana o tātou tini kaumātua, mātou tēnei huarahi I para, ko tātou tonu tēnei arua nei ngā tapu wai o rātou. Ia tētahi, me te haka hua oki I te ingo te hunga wai, Councillor Boyd, mate ngā rangi tata nei, Miriam Elaine Foy, no reira ka tuku atu ngā mihi me ngā hakaro ki a Councillor Boyd, ki tōna whānau o tira ki ngā whānau maha, e nohana ki raro I te kāpua te pauri. Tēnei mea, te mate a itua, hore kai tōna maramataka. No reira, kia kahai tātou ki te tia ki te tahi, tōna wā, ka tae mai a itua, ka pātoto, ki ngā tau whare o tātou ngākau, kia hoki tō tikai, he wāhi ngaro, ki te pēti, ki ngā moenga, kua roa mei hakarika nei o tātou matua tūpuna. No reira, ko te aho te rangi ki a rātou mā, ko te turangi tia, ko ki mai ngā rangi kōrero ki a tātou katoa, tēnā tātou katoa. Nā maunga, ngā paupau, me ki nei o te wharetapu o ngā puhi, ngā maunga ki waho, koutou, tēnei, ngā rangatira, ngā kanohi, ngā waiwai, ngā ringaringa tāpā, o koutou iwi, o koutou raoro, nau mai ki roto I tō tātou miwha. Nā mātou te maringa nui, ko pai wahi mai koutou ki tēnei hui, ahakoa kiko nei, ahakoa e nohana wetahi ki te ao mati hiko, ko tātou tēnei, ko pai mai ki ni karani, o tō tātou ni kaipapa. Hoi, wahi kōrero tāku, pai ki au ngā pūraka ni. I roto I te ao Māori, ko kā kōrero nei, i o Ngāti Himo tēnei mea te namu, wairoa. I nā tau te nganamu ki te kiri o te tangata, ko tāna mahi e pihi I te kiri o te tangata. I roto I tōna, I roto I tērā pihitanga, he huare tōna. Te mahi o te huare, he matangurunguru ai ni, I te kiri o te tangata, e kore koe e mōhio, ko te mahi o te namu e tōtō I tō poto, e inu I tō poto. Pai rāno ki te wā, ka mutu tana inu I tō toto, kātahi ka rere tērā wairoa ki wāhi ki atu. Ko te otinga o tērā inu, ka waiho mai ko te tani haki. Nā, mā koutou te roanga ake o e rā kōrero. Hirohia ngā namu, kia tupato ki ngā wairoa, kei wainga nui ki a tātou, I ngā wā katoa, ina pāmai te pihi, te huare raini, e matangurunguru ai, te kiri o te ngākau, aini pia ka waiho ko te haki kia. E kōrero matāra tēnā ki a tātou. E, ka huri au ki te reo Pākehā. I'm seriously. Hei tanga korero kei ahau. For ngā, we'll turn to our whāhatanga ainu. But just a note that the deputation request received from Kaitanga Trust was withdrawn at their request. So we'll note that. Mohiana tātou kei konei Ahorangi Kawichi Waitford, Professor Kawichi Waitford, ko te tātou kaihaka whiti reo. Ākua e hara I te mea e taua tohu te rotu I te ao Pākehā, engari kei rotu I te ao Māori, e tino tohu ngā tēnā whara. O ia te tātou kaihaka whiti reo I whenei rā. This meeting is being recorded and will be updated to the Final District Council YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Remind everyone that the microphones in this chamber will pick up any sound, so keep any chit-chat or paper shuffling. Also reminding members of our standing orders and speaking order as well. So for those of our whānau who have not yet received our standing orders, we'll start to send those out to your emails as soon as possible. And for our speaking order as well during our items, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Like I said in our very first tweet, I will allow for e rua ngā awa e tai atu tātou ki te ngāwari-tanga o ngā kaupapa, o tētahi ko ngā kaupapa here o tēnei whare, ka tahi kārua ko ngā tikanga Māori, tikanga o tēnei whenua. Nō reira, e o te pai ai ta tātou kore o ta tātou wānanga, me haere ngātahi ngā awa e. Public agenda is available on our Final District Council website. We have Te Oneroa Tohe meeting this Friday, 22nd of May, 10 a.m. at Te Ahu Kaitaia. And actually, he pānui wāku kei konei, ngari tikana pia mā wetai. Ka tukuna ki ngā kaikorori roto I tēnei rema, kei haka waha I ngā kōrero, because I've got down here te kaupapa haka nui I a kororipo, ki roto Ngāti Rehia, engari ka waiho tēnā kaupapa ma Uncle Kippa. I've also brought here our kaupapa around Te Māori o Te Wai, if any of our other councillors would like to speak to that. And I also have here was the Wai 2700 mo te ana wahine inquiry, which I think we had a couple of beautiful wahine sitting around this table speak to. So ka timata ki a koe ke te rangatira I Kippa, māu pia e kōrero mo te kaupapa ka tūri.
Ako ki te au tēnā ripota I roto I te ripota tēnā kōrero, pai ana. Whainau, me mihi atu ki a koe te tuatai tuwherani o tō tata me wiraro I ngā taku tawhito. Me whare ki tia tō tata nei wiwinga I taramai. Me mihi ki ngā mana wahine ki roto I tō tata runga. I tū mai ai mua te tribunal I ngā wiki ko Paurea. E aroha, kaua tai, Kuaka na teina I tū atu. Hakoa, no te kaupapa o te mana wahine, mo ngai Māori katoa tera tū, taraua, tora tau hoki. Nō reira me kauana. Me taku ki te heamana, ko taku tūranga ki tēnei tepu, iri te tonu ki a rāua, o re kauhe tāne wahine. Ka tae te wahine ki te whakahoki ngā mihi ko mihi nia I tō tātou nei heamana ki a tātou. He tohu e nā I whai ai ngā tātou wahine mo tō rātou nei tū. Kia ori te tō rātou nei tū ki te tū o te tāne. Nō reira I roto I tēnei o tō tātou hui ka tae. I taku ki te. Hara te mea tohu ana tēnei tepu. I taku ki te e tae a tātou te mahi te rapai. A te mea ko tēnā tūnga mo tō rātou hanu, ri te tonu ki tōku pū, o tōku hapu. Reira I runga I tēnā me kawana. Huna ko te kōrero mo te rā whakanui a te rā hori, kei te hare mai. Te tikanga ke, ko whakanui atu ki tērā rā o kororiko. Marina moko I aukati. Me tōna pānui, kau whakahare hia tēnā hui te rānui, mai nā āwha. Me te tika tēnā tōna. Ka mutu, ko pānui ke tēnā pānui ki te ao. Ko koutou I roto I tēnā ao. Me nā wātea, hare mai ki te whakanui tēnā rāraka o kororipo. I tai o ngā pātai putake nā te ngako whiwhi ki te ataunga. Ia I ngaini, o tāku whakautu, hare tātou te noho tai ki runga, whakarongo ki ngā kōrero, ore kautake te tirohia whānui atu I tēra. Ore rā te rāhore, te kaumātahi kraka, te pōhiri, nau mai hara. Kia ora. Kia ora.
Councillor Smalls, do you have any kaupapa that you would like to speak to? Any kaupapa coming up?
Not this morning, thanks for the opportunity.
Kia ora. Wallace, e kore koe.
I think it was me.
Whawhai.
Howdy. But acknowledge that I attended the semi-cancelled one and won't be there on this Saturday. Apologies.
Hi, tēnā tātou katoa. I had the privilege of attending the celebration in Rawene recently. And the privilege was not just mine, but everybody that attended, but also just want to mihi to the councillors who were there 4 years ago. Ko koe whai hira, matua rākena. For the mahi that you did that day, that prompted us to work better as a council with Te Māori o Te Wai, and particular acknowledgement to Tania Proctor too for the mahi that she did on our behalf, not just as council, but just as tangata whenua, supporting Te Māori o Te Wai to return the Māori to the Wai. So we spent the evening of the Friday out at Te Piti Marae, listening to the pūrākau, listening to the mamae that our community have been through for almost 20 years. And through the collaboration of the people there in Rawene and Omanaya and Kaikohe and our rangatira and our Māori communities, we managed to pull off a wastewater treatment system that has saved us millions of dollars and will save our mokopuna in future generations. So just a huge mihi to everybody that with that project. Yeah, it was a beautiful morning blessing. Yeah, just the system is the first pipe in New Zealand, and I think it's going to be something that everybody will be watching with great interest. And it just reminds me of the power that we have when we all work together. So bye. Tēnā koutou.
Oh, ai, mei atu kia tātou katoa. Ai, ngā wāhine me runga I te panel o Waitangi Tribunal I tērā wiki, me te wiki iwa tērā I mō te tau. Ka nui te miharo ngā kai kōrero wāhine. Miharo. Whakaro ana I tēnei wā mō tētahi o ngā kuia kua hinga I roto o te rohe o te rarawa a Henry King, he kaimahi rōrawa mō te runanga o te rarawa. Me kia Papa Graham Niho, I rungi te puari o te Onirua Tohe. Haere au mō te wā puto ki tāna tangi I roto o nā take. E maha ngā kōrero mōna. Mataku te nui ngō ngā tangata iaia I tana tino wero, kia mātou kia kaue ware te hitori o ngā tikuri. Taku mokopuna kahe iaia e whāngā tau I haere maranga pahi ki te rerenga wairua ko Papa Graham te tangata, te kaiwhi o te pahi. I te hokinga mai ki te kāinga, I kōrero mai a kahi tana hakapapa ki Ngāti Kuri. Hei aha te mea o te au pauri. Tau tērā tana kaha I ngā waikato. E mihi atu ki tana wahine. Hore kau he kōrero atu I tērā, he kaupapa nui kei mui a tātou. I hari kuau te haere te kite ngā whare o ngā puhi. I tēnei wiki he workshop mo te housing for the elderly. Nō reira he whakaro mo etahi o koutou I roto ki hapu me ngā iwi. He aha ngā momo huarahi mo tērā. Tēnā pē he rereke mo ia rohe e kāre he take ko hore kau he rautaki ko tahi mo te katoa. Engari atu I tērā, ka mihi kia tātou katoa I roni tēnei committee. Anei, tēnā tātou.
Ai, tēnā tātou. Me te noho hanga embarrassed nei ngā mihi, engari kua rongo a ngākau ki te mihi mai a māua ko tā māua whanaunga a hēni anō hoki. I raro I ngā manaakitanga I aroha herewini, tō mātou whanaunga anō hoki, nāna no I whakarite kia pai ai tā mātou tū I tērā wiki nā reira me mihi kātika anō hoki ki aia. Tētahi o aku kauhau ki reira, ko te skills matrix, nā ka puta mai I taua matrix, he puari e rima ngā tāne, me taku whakaro he aha kei roto I taua skills matrix kia whai uara ngā wahine pēra I a Dallas King, tana ana pū ki ngā rau, tana tino mōhio ki te taha pūtaiao, ki te taha mātauranga Māori, pū rākau anō hoki, e rangi e ai ki tēnei skills matrix e ki ana kōwai he tohunga, a puta he puari e rima ngā tāne, tētahi hawhe Māori no te pīti. Nā reira, koina tētahi o aku kōrero I whakatau atu ki reira, anō hoki e ai ki etahi, ko mātou e noho nei ki nei tūru, he tauira o ngā mea pai kia tutu ki ngā wahine I te tūranga rangatira. E rangi nei panonitanga te whakakotahi o ngā kaunihira, rawa ki hai au e kite I ngā haumarutanga, kia mau pūmau tonu mātou ki ngā wāri Māori, aha koa I pōti te whānau te hāpori kia pērā ai, nā reira ko tō mātou tūranga rangatira nei, kai kaunihira nei, he tūranga e tūwana I runga I te one pū neke, kaua ki runga I te whenua tū te ao tū te pō. Nā reira koina ngā take o te kāinga o te whare nei I kawe atu au ki pōneke kia whakatau. Kaua au e hold my breath, ka puta hua I te whare mere, engari a tōna wā, ka kūkara aku uri, he aha te tū o taku kuia, he aha ona whakaro I ona wā nā ka rongo, ka kite, ka pānui mārika rātou ki ngā kōrero a tō rātou kuia kia kaua e wareware. Kei maumahara tonu tātou ki ngā pakanga mai rano, tainua ki tēnei rā, me te mana konui ka taia e o mātou uri te noho haripua, te noho haumaru, te noho tau ki runga I tō rātou ake whenua. Rawa e tai atu ki te whakatō rākau ki o māpiri I te rā hatarei, e rangi mihi ana ki a Papa Hone Dalton mā e kaha mahi kia whakapai te wai o māpere, mo te painga no te katoa, me ngā kōrero Bowman Wihongi, ko tērā roto o māpere, ko te ngākau o Ngāpuhi. Nā reira, kia pai ai taua wai, ka pai ai tā tātou noho ngā ki konei, nā reira, mihi kā tika ki a rātou mahi, me te hikaka kia tai atu ki te whakanui, te whakahokinga mai o Kororipo a tērā wikine, me te tautoko i a whaahira mō ngā whare, mō ngā kaumātua kuia, ki hai te kaunihera he pūtea, kia whakatika, kia mau tonu ki era whare, nā reira, ko te whakatau, ka aha tātou me era whare, me te hiahia, kia noho hei whare tonu mā o tātou kaumātua kuia. Ko te ara tahi noiho ki a mātou, ko te ara kia tutuki ai tēnā, ko te mahi tahi, me ngā hapu, me ngā Pākihi Māori, pērā kia te hauro Ngāpuhi, pūkenga rau rātou i tēnei momo hanga whare mā ngā kaumātua kuia, nā reira, he aki nui tēnei kia hau mai ngā rautaki o te hapu, o te Māori kia tutuki ai te whainga, kia noho tonu ai ngā kaumātua kuia ki era whare. Koina no tāku, tēnā tātou.
Kia ora, tēnā tātou e noho nei, koutou e piri mai nei, ai mihi ana i te pai o te noho tahi i te rau, ki me te wiki i muara, ki te ana hau i taku whanaunga i a Rowena, i runga i te ipurangi noki, pai reo, ki roto i tōna no whare, ki roto mō te tau, nā reire mihi ana kia tātou kamutu me te mōhio, kua roa tēnei koepepe e kōrerohi ana, nā reira e tika ana kia mahi tātou i ngā mahi e tutiki ai e rā mea kaua kia noho noa tātou i tērā tū āhua e rangi kia whai te ara e puta ai tātou ki te ora. Taku whakapai ko tētahi o era ara ko te ako o tauiwi ka pēhia he aha tēnei mea te rangatiratanga i ai ki te Māori. Kia mutu te pōhehe mātou ana rātou ki tō tātou ao. E rangi kia mā te ako ka pai ake ai te mahitai. Ka mutu ko etahi o ngā kaupapa e rere nei ki Wainganui a tātou i tēnei wā ko ngā hiahia o ngā whānau ki te wāhi ki te mātauranga, te ako i wā rātou tamariki kia noho Māori rātou i roto i te whiu e whai tonu ana mātou, kia whakatū mai tō mātou kura ki Wainganui a mātou. Ana reira, ko reira hoki ngā whakaro i aha ngā ara mā ngā tamariki. Tērā tētahi kaupapa nui ki roto i a mātou o te whiu i tēnei wā, ko te whai kia whakatū ake i tō tātou kura. Mihi whakamutunga kia Ngāti Hine mo te wahanga ki te ahu whenua.
Kia ora.
Me te mahi nui ko oti a Ngāti Hine i roto i era te whakatupu i te ohanga ki roto i te kāinga nei, ki roto i te taitoke rautonu. Me te whai mahi o ngā uri ki roto i a tātou. Reira, hoi apu aku kōrero.
Tēnā puri ki tuahine. Kiripi. Just noting that we've got members online, Mike Te Waki, we've got Darren Beatty for Thomas Ohaya as part of Te Roroa. Tuahine Nai's Manuel, Auntie Rowena Tana, and Kitty is also online. Mike, mehe mea e rongona koe i wēnei kupu, e kōrero wāru?
Morena, ato mairi e te whānau, wēnei mihi no roto mai te ahi parapara, ka whiti mai a tamanui te rā, me ngā hihi o tamanui te rā ki tēnei wāhi o tātou, nā reira ka nui ngā mihi kia koutou, hoeno kia whaiwhai ake i ngā mihi ki te hunga mate, ai, tō tātou matua, etahi wā, taku hoa whawhai, ko matua Graham Tira, kamutu, ko te pau o te rinanga o te rāroa tērā, ko whae Hine King, toru te kaumā waru ngā tau, e oti nei e ia ki roto i a mātou, nā tana aroha ki te iwi. Rātou ki te pō, anō nei, tā tātou tamaiti ki roto i a Ngāti Kahu. Tahi anō ko mutu tana whawhai ki tana māwiwitanga. Nā reira, ko ngā hekenga o ngā roimata ki te hunga, ko huri tuara mai. Rātou ki te pō, tātou ki te ao. Tētahi atu pānui no roto mai te kāinga rongo nui o tātou. No roto mai Pawarenga, ko ngā nannies, ko tau atu ki te iwa te kau. Nā reira, whakanui a kā tika, ki roto i a Pawarenga. Aini pēr mā hera e huaina ngā ingoa o ngā nannies, engari me whakanui a kā tika. Ki roto i wera o ngā kupu whakanuia, me tiro ake au ki roto tāmaki, ki te mahi haka i te hui tērā whakatatai arohe, ki roto tāmaki, tika ana, me mihi au, a te raroa ki te kapa ki ana i ngā raroa, ara ko angitu, nā rātou i whakaihu waka ana. O te ake ki ngā kaupapa ora ki Waingani a tātou e hoama, e aku rangatira e huihui mai rā ki raro i te tuanui o tērā whare, kamutu, tā tātou hea mana, ki tō whānau anō hoki, ki tō teina, tahi anō ko tau atu e ia, ki roto i ngā mahi o rarohenga, ko tau, ko whiwhi e ia tana pūhoro, e rā momo āhuaranga o tātou, tā te mea ko rongo au ki tēnei mea te nohonga o te Māori ki tōna ake ma ao Māori. Ko tērā etahi o ngā hua. O te ake, koutou e aku kranga whaia, kranga tuahine, i kawea nei, tērā kaupapa i tērā wiki, te mana wahine, no te tai tokerau koutou. Marikana tērā mahi mā koutou, e kawea, e arahi tēnei te mihi, taku tuahine anō hoki Dallas, me tērā kaupapa rongonui. Hoino, kamutu i reira, ko oku mihi kia tātou, tēnā rā tātou katoa.
Te ora mo te reta. Nice, he kōrero, he kaupapa wāu.
Morena tātou, e mihi ana ki a koutou. Ngā mana wahine i roto i te whare, i roto i te taitokerau katoa pai, ngā kōrero tuku iho, ngā kōrero i tēnei rā, ngā kōrero katoa te mana o te wahine. E mihi ana. Kei a koe e te whanaunga, e te hapu e te iwi o Ngāti Rēhia, ki te hokinga mai o Kororipo, pai tērā kaupapa, haramai. Ngā take ki roto i a whangaroa i nāia nei, ngā take katoa mō ngā whare, mō ngā hauora, mō ngā taiao, ko tērā te take me ngā mokopuna. Ko ngā mokopuna te take i ngā wā katoa, ko tērā ngā kaupapa katoa i ngā wā katoa. Kia Dallas me ngā kaitiaki, kia hokianga e pai tērā mahi, paparere ata e kōrero tuku iho ki te hāpai, te huarahi, mō ngā mahi katoa i te mauri o te wai. He kaupapa nui, tino haritaku ngā kau e kitenga e ngā nama, e ngā mahi, mō tērā kaupapa o te mauri o te wai. No reira i mihi ana ki a koutou e hui mai nei, tēnā koutou katoa.
Tēnā koe nice. Auntie Rowena he kōrero wāu.
Hai, tēnā tātou katoa, mihi atu ana ki a koutou, e te whanaunga, e ngā whanaunga o te taitokerau, mihi atu ana ki a koutou, me tātou katoa. Not so much a take, but Ngāti Hine, te runanga o Ngāti Hine, we've held a number of hui recently, as recent as Saturday, we held our huia tau, actually 2 huia tau, for our different entities. And I'm pleased to say that we have elected a new member to represent Te Runanga o Ngāti Hine on Te Kuaka. I will put that into a formal letter and send that through to the Far North District Council, also to Te Kahu o Taonui, and that person will be Hohi Pere Williams. Hohi Pere has a extensive background in Te Taiao, and that's the space that she works passionately in. Not only for Ngāti Hine, but for the benefit of all. So that's my kōrero this morning. Knowing we've got a lot of things to get through, I wanted to drop in this morning and have a haki nohi, at what happens at this table here. Seen a lot of stuff about it, and I thought, well, one way to know is to be there yourself in person. So, no reira, tēnā taku kōrero i te ata nei, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe. Kiri, he kōrero wāwi tēnei ata?
Atamari e kia koutou, ka horika e kōrero ahau. Nothing from me this morning, Tamati.
Ka pai. Mutu ana kia Darren. Ka pai. Ka pai. Ok, toke. Mihi ana kia koutou katoa me o koutou kōrero. Tikana kia tūwhera i te kuaha kia patere mai ngā kaipapa katoa. Mai ana te ka pisi o te Māori. Mutu ana tēnei kaipapa, ka haere ki kaipapa ki atu. Kore o te roto i te rā, te wiki, te marama, te tau potahi. No reira, haramai ngā kōrero. Tāpiri atu ki tēnā a po ngā manu kōrero kātū ki roto o te kareti o Pomapāhi, a te rua ki te rima o hune, a te rima o hune ko te pōtukutanga mō te ahu whenua awards i whānga rei noki. Maha ngā kaipapa, ka aroha kia koutou ngā Māori, wa koutou nei hoki. We'll move on to our first agenda item. That's just to call for the apologies or any declarations of interest. Or if there are none, I will move that. Can I get a seconder? I have apologies from Kahika Mokotepania, my Deputy Chair Mane Tahere, and Nicole Anderson. Are there any others?
Ai, Tamati, tēnā koe. I see Pita's name was on there, so can I put apologies in for Pita Tipene at this time? I believe he's at another hui today. Kia ora.
Orana e Tamati, we have JJ Ripuki.
Okay, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Disengaged, abstentions. That's carried. Like I said, we have no deputations today. We're going to have a call for the confirmation of our previous minutes. That's item number 4.1. Can I have a mover for that, please? Seconder. I'll take those previous minutes as read. Is there anything that anyone has picked up? Spelling incorrect, mover, seconder?
Maybe need to mention item 4.2.
Yep.
Tēnā pia e noi atu ki Aaron, o te tupanga e pāniki tēnei, o ai whakatika.
Kia ora mai tātou. Nei atu tuka tātou nei kia manga. Mai ne te parahara na tātou tēnā wei, ngā reira tēnā. Ai, kika te tahi au e rero te imaira te mai whai haura e pāna ki te nāwai te tikanga ki te whakai ki tērā co-management agreement e noho ana ke waingana o mātou ta kaunehira me nā hapu a he wharapa. Ia au e rangahau tērā resolution. Korea tai o mātou ki adopt tērā ki rotu i te kuaka. Nā reira, ka te tuai tētahi te pāno, ka te tuku atu i tei te mutunga o tēnei mārama. Te tuai tētahi te pāno, te rapu te whakaetanga o tēnei te kaunehira. Nā reira, wera te ki staff oversight. Wera nei. E kore rono.
The translator was unable to hear.
So I was just saying, Councillor, that when we came through and I did some research on the management agreement for Muringaihe, that there was an oversight by staff for the Kuaka to be able to adopt that co-management agreement. Whilst no work has been started yet, we've drafted up a report to go to full council to have the recommendations that have been meeting on the 28th.
Will that go in the meeting minutes as a note, and how will that be recorded moving forward? As far as Hilda, that was not presented at the time, so we are adjusting these notes.
Well, it is a for information for the committee that can be put into the minutes, and more importantly, we'll be following up in full council.
Okay, all those in favour say aye. As against? Abstentions?
Thanks, I wasn't here.
Kapa. Motion is carried. Kia ora mai tātou. Ngā pūrongo taipito information reports. That is on page 16, agenda item 5.1. Can I have a mover for that, please? Tēnā koe Kamati. Seconder?
Aye.
Kia ora koe. Okay, we have the report from our team. Lani is our high-court purpose. Lani, pass it over to you. If you have anything,
Ka hore, I'll take it as read. We reported on this at the last Te Kuaka because we've had such a fast turnaround to this week. There is an additional section in there around strategy monitoring and reporting. Otherwise, the standard report applies from last month. Hi, you can't
Tātai, questions?
Yep. Kia ora. Kia ora, Lani. How are we capturing whether iwi, hapu and marae feel engagement with council is improving? Sorry, big one.
Te hono to undertake hapu engagement hui. We've committed to 3 hui per quarter and 1 per report. This was a result of feedback we received last training that hapu were wanting more direct engagement. So we have committed to that and we've undertaken 6 at this point for this financial year. We also note a lot of our hapu are also involved in working groups through wastewater, water treatment plants, and so there's an avenue there for hapu engagement. But we probably need to do it better with our data capture and our feedback pathways that we've got for our iwi and hapu.
Through the chair, just to add to that, it's a great question around how do we monitor improvement. I think we've captured data in terms of the requests. I think fewer requests is a good indication. More positive engagement, so we will be ramping up our engagement plan in the new financial term. We've got about 254 marae to visit. So there's a lot of marae, and we've got around 70 of them to date in this financial term. So we're really trying to ramp that work up. But I think that the outputs that come of those are designed that we're not taking, historically we've taken kaupapa of the kaunihira to our communities. We're not taking kaupapa out. We're wanting to hear from them, providing information for them to help them make their engagement with our council a lot more positive.
Okay, there is a photo in another paper that I'll speak to that a little bit further.
Any other council smallers, and then we'll go to Matakipa.
Sure, through you, Chair, this is probably for you, Aaron. How many teams do council report to on the 6 weekly status updates to Te Hone?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? How many?
So all council teams provide 6 weekly status updates to Te Hone regarding their Te Whaiutu goals.
Yes.
And you also have the general manager's monthly operational briefing. You also have weekly drop-ins, which is great. So it sounds like there's some wonderful channels happening. But how many teams are actually reporting to you?
All of the teams, all of the teams report back. As you can see by some of the data, we've got a wee way to go for some of those teams. But there's a bigger story behind this thing. When we look at the implementation of what's a fantastic strategic framework, what we have is we've gone for the quantitative measure of what we put in our departments. I don't think, to be brutally frank, I don't think that we're getting the buy-in from our staff. So as part of the review that we brought forward, it was forecasted to start in November. We're starting that as soon as we're going through the recruiting process for our principal advisor now. So their first role will be to actually start reviewing that with the intent to co-design the goals that come out of the Whaiutu. I think that we've probably got we haven't had good uptake in some of our departments because they don't have buy-in. And if you don't have buy-in, there's two things that they're looking for. How does that make my job easier? Or how does that make me look more successful in my role? So hence the reason, whilst you will note that we do have some sitting at about the 33%, and we're having to chase them up continuously. I'm hoping that through the review that we'll be able to negate a lot of those problems we're having through the implementation.
41 teams, there's a lot of teams to report in terms of your efficiency. So I'm waiting for that.
Lani pāna ki ngā wānanga mo he whakaputanga me te tiriti ki te au mo ngā whakahaere ana e na mo ngā kaimahi. Pēhea te tēpu nei, pēhea ngā councillors me koutou. E uru ana rātou ki roto e ngā wānanga?
We need to buy a chickie.
I don't think. Oh, yeah.
We have one.
We have.
Nā te pātai. Mena tono ana wa tātou nei kaimahi, tikana me haere ngā upoko katoa. I roto I tēnā kaupapa. Koe ana. Kapa.
Patani.
We're done.
Kapai, thank you for the questions and the clarification. Thank you, Lani and Aaron, for the reporting as well. I know that this is a big kaupapa for us, not only here in our council walls, but to all of our staff and our big contractors as well, that we're holding them to big promises. through the contractual agreements and also whānau Holdings Limited, and those who actually ka nui tā rātou hihia kia piri mai kia tātou kaunihira o te hiko o te ikanorere mihana kia putu katoa. That's been moved, seconded. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, abstentions, ka pai. That's moved. Carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 5.2. Should find it on page 20. Ngā kaupapa Māori matters of importance, and welcome back to the table, Lani. Can I move with all this? Tēnā koe, Councillor Ella. Seconder.
Sure.
I te he mana, e pai ana mehe me ka whakai e tuku mō te ni hoki ngā mema a iwi a hapu.
Yes.
Kia moi oi.
Yeah, tikanga.
Marama chatea. Ai, maka me.
I've got you on the next one.
Okay.
Lani. Kahoki anoki.
I'll take this as read also. It's our standard report for us in our kaupapa Māori, what's happened since the last hui to now.
Any part from members?
Page 26, and there's the beautiful karakia, which was pretty much a healing of some varu that yet again happened at Waikare. After I had sat in here at one of our Kaunihira hui when we were talking about the roading contracts, and I was saying how awesome it is that our roading now has a process in place to make sure that incidences don't happen where communities and marae, the kohanga and the school bus system don't get told, you know, like days out from a proposed closure, that their road is going to be closed. And yeah, so Lani and her team had to pick up the challenge there and listen to our uncle out and our whānau there and heal the relationship yet again. And I know that our community board member, Jane Hindle, is still feeling a bit bruised by some of the language in the email used by Whanonga. But I don't think it's appropriate that Te Hono is the backstop. So it comes back to the previous paper, I guess, as well, that, you know, how do we ensure that each part of the council system is doing their mahi to prevent this being an extra workload on Te Hono. They need to level up. And that's why we have the goals in Te Pai o Ita. But it means more work for Te Hono, more work for us as elected members when things go wrong. And I just want to acknowledge that Lani yet again healed things with the Waikaria Gorge road closure. And, you know, it's not isolated to Waikaria. We've had the same thing with Quarry Road previously up in Te Huku. You know, when communities are told that their road is going to be closed and, you know, there's no other way to get emergency services through that route and people are cut off. And you wouldn't get that in certain other parts of our district. Yeah, so I'm relieved that the solution has been. Thank you.
Cool.
Ia koe te hea mana, hari te mea he pātai, rangi he mihi, te mea kua kaha kitea I roto I ngā hapori, ko kaunihira, tēnei tīma kaunihira, e puta atu ana ki te noho me ngā whānau, I mua rāno I te tainga o te raruraru I etahi wā, ko tai ke atu tēnei tīma, ki te ia rātou, ki te kōrero ki a rātou kamutu, ki te rongo I ngā hiahia o ngā hapori. Kei rato pia I era nohoanga tētahi ara e mātou ai tātou pēnei e pai ana te hapori ki te kaunihira. I roto I era whakawhitinga kōrero and maybe thinking about a way that anecdotal data can be reflected as a relationship measure. Ka pai pia tērā I te mea kite ana, I te pai haere, kua pai ake te Māori ki te kaunihira, nā ngā mahi nui ko o te kaunihira I roto I ngā tau, me te kanohi kitea o tēnei rōpū I roto I o tātou kāinga.
Tēnā ki te tuhine. E te hia mano te rarawa, ka huri atu ki a koe e koro.
Hoi no, whai ake I ngā mihi ki runga ki tēnei tira manaki o tātou. I tā koutou nei hui ko karangahia ki roto I ahau, ki runga I te marae o Waipuna, me tērā o ngā whakamohioranga me pēhea, ngā aupiki me ngā auheke. Hoi no tā te ki o te nuinga o waku karanga maha I taua huira. Ko Hari, e rata, e taku iwi, bloody, e tahi wā, upoko maro. Engari, ka mutu taua huira ki roto o Waipuna, e puta mai te nuinga me te ki nei, pai ngā mahi, rangatira ngā mahi. So, wera o ngā āhuaranga kia tuituia te kaunihira I ngā hapu tua tini o tā tātou rohe. Tērā momo āhuaranga ahakoa, tērā hui ki roto I te metropolis o Whakarapa I raro I te maunga o Panguri. Hoi, e ki ana te whare. Nā reira, kanui te mihi. Kanui te mihi.
Tēnā koe te tuhina. Lani?
What Mike has just spoken about, that's not included in this report. It does fall into the Te Hono operational report, but we have also attended since the last Te Kuaka meeting by Ki Te Rai, which was the recovery hub. So that hasn't been included in here, and I will send out that report once it has gone through council. But as Mike mentioned, we did visit a number of over the 2 days as we went into recovery. And I want to make it to Sarah as well, and the Te Hono team for dropping everything and responding to the needs of the community at that time. So we attended Whirinaki Marae, Waimamaku, Pawaringa and Pangaru over 2 days, and Kaitaia was unfortunately postponed due to the incoming cyclone. But yes, we worked alongside NRC on this as well. So that's what Mike was referring to, our hui at Waipuna.
Koe nana ngā kōrero? Hanga ne me, haere kutu ki te horore I te nui mo ngā mahi ko tia kutu. We have a move with second. Those in favour of the report, say aye. Aye. Those against, abstentions, ka pai. That's carried. We'll now move on to item 5.3 on page 28. Okay, Kipa. Koe he kai tautoko, he tuarua. Ka pai. Update on local government and resource management reforms. This is from the May to June period 2026. We have Roger is online.
Kia ora koutou.
To speak with us.
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Yep. Kia ora koutou. I'm Roger Eckers. I am the head of strategic reform initiatives at the council. The paper that's been put forward was for the period to the end of April. As of 5th of May, there's been a significant shift in the direction with the announcement of the Head Start pathway process. So a lot of what's in the report, particularly in the local government space, has been superseded by that process. So I can talk to the report what's happening now since the 5th of May. If there's any questions on that, I can talk to that now. There will be an update to the next Te Kuaka meeting with the May-June period, which will bring this into play. But it is a rapidly moving situation, if that's the right word, on the response from Northland councils to the Head Start reform process, which has changed things around quite significantly.
Any questions to Roger about this report, anyone? And take angararu ana koutou kāpore e whai reo ana te Māori roto I tēnei huringa o ngā ture roto te whare kāwanatanga kia tātou ngā kaurihiro o te tai tōkero tikana kia kōrero I nai nei. Mea hei tau haka tōpūtanga ka ore tātou whino mōhiara me he mea ka ngoto ka toka o te reo Māori I roto I tērā haka tōpūtanga a kaurihira. Responses.
Can we please have included in the note when it is out posted and being superseded as per Roger? Definitely receiving the report.
Noted. Thank you.
Just to that point through the chair, just noting that this report is for the period to end of April. So,
Councillor Ellen.
Kia ora, Roger. I gave it in my brief update, and I've said it a number of times before, but raising it in this committee as well, that there are no safeguards for Māori wards in the reform, and potentially we have to go back out and sell our value again to our metes to ensure that we hold on to the seats that were democratically held by the Far North constituents. So raising that as an issue, as well as our community boards, who are major interfaces between the council and whānau hapori, and no safeguards also around keeping them. And these two things, the community boards and the Māori wards, are our only point of difference between us and our fellow councils. None of the other councils have these and have not held on to them in the referendum if they did choose to go that way. So these are our unique point of differences. And so, you know, selling it to councils who don't have it and may not see the value in it will be a massive undertaking, but these have been democratically voted in by our constituents, and it would be undemocratic to lose them in the merger.
Thank you. Can I respond to that through the chair, just if that's okay?
Yep.
He wanted to respond.
Roger, did you want to respond to that?
I just want to clarify what is actually going on with the Head Start process, just at a high level. So the Head Start process requires 2 or more of the territorial local authorities to put a proposal together to go to cabinet on 9th of August. So the situation we're in right now is working alongside either one or both of the territorial local authorities. The Northern Regional Council can't partake in that process. But they are providing input into it as we work together on this through this process. So that's the situation we're in. So everything that's been raised here are valid points to be brought to the table when we start our discussions with either Whangarei District Council, Kaipara District Council, or both.
Kia ora.
Can I just add to that? Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Kia ora. E tautoko ana I ngā kōrero mō te tiaki I te reo o te Māori roto I nei nekehanga I think that it would be really important, especially reflecting back on the report from Te Hono on the strategic direction of this council, that te tiriti and he whakaputanga are part of the pillars of that strategic relationship that is to be discussed with the other councils. I think that the Far North District Council has, over the last few years, has been leading the way when it comes to Māori Crown relations, Māori Council relations, and it would be a missed opportunity to not have those significant parts of the relationships that we hold in the Far North to be lost in a merger. I think that that alongside the representatives of communities such as Te Heku with their unique perspectives, Hokianga with their unique perspectives, we know that this region in particular has whānau, especially whānau Māori, in very isolated and under-resourced areas of this region, and we'd hate for it to be blanketed and overlooked when we think about the unique differences that exist here in the Far North, and especially the essentially codependent relationship between Māori and Pākehā that live in the far reaches of our region, that those relationships should also be discussed as part of that, part of working together and going forward. And I would say that Māori representation has to be a core feature in bringing these councils together, and not just at the council table, because also what it does is give us an opportunity to think about what can we reimagine to be better. Not just what we're going to safeguard, but what are the things that we can imagine to be the best version of a council that could really work for the people that live in Te Taitokero. And I think that the influence that the Far North District Council can have on the rest of the region to try and stretch Māori and council relationships could be quite significant for how the entire region moves together and the relationship we have across Te Taitokero. So those are just some of the things that I think probably need to be ensured.
Kelly, did you want
Yeah.
But what I would add to that is I think it's really important that council and our partners be out there talking with our whānau, telling them what the Head Start process is, highlight the opportunities, and make sure that you get them to, send that feedback into us. Moko sent me a picture of another council, Ruben and Guy. They have already started going out and doing engagement sessions with their communities. They started last week, and I think that we should be doing that too, but I know that we've got a lot of kaupapa on, but yeah, I would support us getting out with even our iwi and hapu partners to do it together. It'd be really, really awesome. Myself, Councillor Foy and Kahika are on the regional working group for this, and I think it's really beneficial to us that we've had the Northern Ford together, and also Te Kahu o Taonui that was established around the time of the original commissioner's statement about our last amalgamation kōrero, that there was this body established that council would work with. So yeah, we've got all the right pieces in place. We just need to make sure that we hold our line on those important take. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Roger, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just through the chair, just in response to the communication. Yes, we're aware of what Ashburton have done, and I think it was, I'm trying to think, Tararua, I think was the other council that has done some early communication. We have got something in play at the moment to do a similar sort of thing. We're just waiting to finalise all of that material and get it approved before you send it out. So we are going to do a targeted communication. I think I just want to emphasize something that the short time frame that we're working towards does not allow for, significant levels of engagement, if any. And we're framing up what we can do between now and putting our response together. So the time frame is very tight. And also, I just want to add to it that, and this is all publicly available on, if you want to look at the DIA website, but there's some there's some criteria that the Cabinet is looking for. And it's an assessment of what a proposal might look like from either 2 or 3 local authorities up here, and the criteria the Cabinet will decide on whether they're going to approve that Head Start process. If they don't, what we know so far is that will be kicked out to what they're calling a backstop process, where the government will, what they're saying to us, the government will determine the structures and of local government to those regions, and I guess territorial local authorities, if they don't jump on board as well or not put on board to be part of this, they will form that. They will determine what that structure will look like going forward. So it's a bit of a rock and hard place. There's a bit of a stick and a carrot thing going on here. And at the moment, where we're at with staff, we're just trying to navigate all of that, and then bring together something coherent to an elected member steering group, which has been formed.
Kia ora, Roger. Noting the date of the report, do you have any further or future updates where we can be made aware, not just as a council, but as Te Kuaka committee? When I think about the people sitting around this table, I think about the pillars of the sacred house of Ngāpuhi. We have some of them sitting around this table, and to acknowledge that we also have Te Kahu o Taonui in this whare. And if we want to ensure that we are in a space where we're not leaving it, like many of others of our kaupapa within this house, we leave it where it's too late. I think the engagement for the local waters came down at like step number 3, 5. Taking those learnings into this kaupapa, which we are being told to hurry up and get the job done. What further updates or FYIs can you provide at this very moment so that the members sitting around this table can go back and speak to the hapu and the iwi and bring that full representation back to the table at our next?
Yeah. Yes. So obviously, waiting for the next Te Kuaka meeting is a long way away, and something in the interim. I just want to mention that one of the items that we've got on the table for the elected member steering group, which has been put in place to oversee this, is a communications and engagement plan, specifically targeting this period right now through to the 9th of August. So that's in draft, and as in it's been pulled together today. This is sort of timetable we're working towards at the moment. And that is to go up there, and there's particular mention in there of what form of engagement we need to do, and Te Kuaka is specifically mentioned inside that comms and engagement plan, which is in draft right now.
Tēnā pē, Roger. Any further questions or kōrero from the members? We'll go to Matua Kipa then, Matua Walls.
Kia ora, Roger. Nais and I also sit on Te Ruarangi on the Northern Regional Council, and this discussion came up at our hui. And the same terminology that you used was used by Ruben when he was presenting what needs to be done. And it mentioned we're under a tight time frame, so we may not be able to consult properly over the decision that's been made. Please don't underestimate our hapu when we're needed to come together and provide our input into these important issues. We've just had a hearing, 2 weeks of hearing, that we have our mana wahine that were placed under the same time frames of trying to provide evidence in front of a tribunal that they worked overnight, weekends, every hour that was made available to them. So regardless how much time we have, whether it's a long period or a short period, don't underestimate our ability to be able to provide anything within those timeframes. So the trick is, of course, Roger, is to include us as early as possible. At our Ruarangi, we were by the kōrero that was given there, that we were probably not even going to have the opportunity to provide any input apart from those elected from the councils. I'm not saying the council members can't do it on our behalf, but I think it's best coming from our hapu, those things, Kelly. It's being a Māori, the chair of, and he's Māori doesn't necessarily say that it's coming from a Māori view. And I'm also aware that you sit on a role as council members, and probably not this council. I think, yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. Finally, there's two points here. One is we can see what we've developed at our Whanau District Council, which is the best in the country, of course. We can see it as a risk by amalgamating, or we take an opportunity to bring those other councils in to where our level is. So those were the only comments I want to.
Go to Roger. Are you concerned about the speed of this from central government down to local government down to our communities? Should we, and if you are, how can we push back to slow that down? Because we have this forum full of individual representatives from our communities, and we're all here as individuals fighting and protecting the interests of our communities. So our topography is extensive across Whaitukara. It's not easy to get to every part of our community. So I get the feeling within this forum that the pace is quickening, and if we could influence in any way to slow it down to our level, where we can reach those in our community, especially the most vulnerable, as individuals, as collectives, to protect the interests of our community, we would welcome that.
I guess for my answer as a council officer, I'm dealing with what's been handed out from the government on the process. Sorry, on the timetable, the direction that's come through, the policy document that's come from the government, and then what we as staff collectively are doing across the councils to respond to this. So I guess from that perspective, we are a little bit fortunate because we were ahead of this when we front-footed the simplifying local government proposal. So we have the structures and the people in place who are familiar with this, who've been working on it for across the three participating councils. I will add, Kaipara District Council are still waiting in the wings to make a formal decision on whether they participate in this process. Given what's just been announced, they're most likely going to come in, but we'll wait and see what they say on the 27th of May. But it is a very, very, very short timetable to get together something substantial that we can submit. And as per what's been handed to us, it's based on the criteria that's been put forward in the policy documentation that's been provided by the government, which is guiding a lot of that decision making. So we are assessing options at the moment for what that might look like. I mean, just to take it up a level, it is calling it amalgamation. It's calling back. It's what they're asking for is unitary authorities. So where a territorial or local authority potentially will combine as well. Local authorities combine and then take on the regional council functions as well. So staff are looking at what those options might look like, and measuring up what that would mean against the criteria the government has asked for. So I guess my answer to that would be, if you can have a look at the policy documentation and have a read of that, that might sort of help a little bit with your understanding of where it's going to. But ultimately, it's got to be two territorial local authorities coming together and putting a proposal together and then ticking the boxes for the government's criteria. Now, I know that doesn't answer the question about engagement and across the communities of the far north, but that's what we're working towards at the moment. I guess that's it, and we're doing as much as we can within that really protracted timetable to get to a place.
I'm just going to quickly pass it over to Guy to add on to some of that.
Yep.
And go to fire order. Thank you.
Through the chair. I'll try and give some more context to Roger's remarks. And Roger, you didn't want to comment on the speed of this process. We're just sort of dealing with what we've been presented, which was 5th of May, 2 weeks ago, 2 Mondays ago, we were talking about the Head Start pathway. But just for context, Roger was appointed to the strategic initiatives role at the start of this triennium with this very process in mind. We set out papers and led the thought on in anticipation of local government reform coming. So the first, pretty sure it was the first Mayoral Forum meeting, we delivered a paper and we started suggesting structures, governance structure, etc., for tackling the LG reform, simplification of local government project. So we're kind of ahead of the game. Having said that, our initial timeline anticipated a lot more work going into reviewing the options in some detail with the select member steering group and then disseminating that information out through committees and the broader council. And for sure, we anticipated some form of consultation in there prior to making a decision. So with the Head Start pathway, I think where that kind of differs is the government's imposed quite a restrictive timeline on when we actually make the decision about the future. And I have to say, I've never seen this approach in any industry I've participated in the past, where it seems we make a really, really important decision and then we figure it out later what the details are. So that was not anticipated in our original work plan, for sure. What we've said in the last fortnight is that regardless of where we get to and what the combinations are in terms of two councils coming up with a plan and possibly compelling the third council to go along with it, that we are going to attempt to include some form of consultation in our process, whether that be town hall meetings or whatever form it may take. We will endeavour to get some consultation with the communities.
Can I just respond to that? The concern for all of us should be the risk involved in all these changes. The risk is funding for infrastructure, for example. Central government have abdicated responsibility. They're throwing it back to councils. Some of the responsibilities for other things they've taken on board, but this, and you're right, Guy, this is a major decision. Like MMV, we should take as long as the weakest link in the whole chain of Aotearoa will take, not pushed at any time by politicians of any government in making a decision as crucial as this. So if there's any way this forum can emphasise that point to central government, we should do it.
Tēnā koe i o koro, mā koe hakare rane waki koro amuri ake. Auntie Hilda, we'll go to Auntie Hilda, then we've got Nais online.
Kia ora, he pātai mo e ko. I rongo au ki o koutou kōrero. te whakaaro kia hui tahi ngā komiti Māori, iwi, engari i wainunu i ngā kaunihira, kia noho tahi, kia puta mai he kōrero kotahi pia. Tēnā pia, he whakaaro mō FNDC, whāngarei, me kaipara. E te kāno o kōrero, aha ko te poto o te wā, he pai kia hui tahi, ko tērā te aho te Māori i nei rā. Ai, he whakaaro.
Ani kei a nice te whakautu.
Ka pai nice, kia koe te wā.
Tēnā koe te hea mana. Roger, I was just with the speed on which this beast is moving at, and with what you're doing, absent of NRC being able to input into the Head Start process, has there been whakaro around, number one, the mana whakahono ārohe agreements, and what is actually being breached at this point?
Yep. Okay. So just to respond to that through the chair. So no, nothing specifically about the mana whakahono ārohe agreement has been discussed. And I just want to clarify, Northern Regional Council are providing resources into this process, a lot of resources, more so than some other councils at this point in time. So the input they are providing is invaluable, and they remained engaged from a staff point of view, and which is really, really encouraging, and I hope that can continue going forward. But the specifics about about these things that have been raised here has to be worked through as part of getting to a proposal. So where the council is at the moment, given we haven't put anything formal up, but we did do a workshop on this last week. So informally, we're in this process until right through to 9 August, and then subject to where that arrives at that point in time. So where I'm at with all of this is that everything that's been raised and everything is on the table for discussion with another council to go into a submission.
I'm mindful, Roger, that in the mana whakahono ārohe agreements states te tiriti o Waitangi me he whakaputanga. And with the speed on which this is moving at, it is actually contradicting the agreements that have been made with iwi, hapu, and whānau. So I'm just mindful on how that's going to be shaped and how it's going to be upheld within those agreements. Moving forward, they are still a part of the spatial planning. They are still a part of the whole entire reform. But if we kick off at a point where they are already in, the back office rather than next to, yeah, I'd like to get a little bit more clarity around how these are being applied and actioned from the get-go. That's okay.
Yep.
Tēnā koe te he mana.
Nice. Rukuwai.
Sorry, tahi anō te pātai. Will the proposal or the outline of the proposal be made available to us, or are we thinking that it's going to come post some kind of decision? Yeah, what state will we get the next bit of information?
Yep. Through the chair. So at the moment, we are working with elected member steering group with the intent that we'll come back to council. What's been signalled so far is an extraordinary council meeting in June to finalise, to get to a place of decision on where each council is going to go on this, and that's to be worked up in the period between now and then. At some point in time in there, I do have a regular scheduled update on to Te Kuaka on the reforms, and obviously that's going to wait till the next meeting. So I guess it's a determination for within the council about if we're going to have outside of that Te Kuaka process that we're in place right now, if we're going to have something else come back to Te Kuaka. And also just want to add that I did mention that Te Kuaka is in the comms and engagement plan, which is again yet to be approved, if that's the right word, or agreed to by the elected member steering group. Yeah.
Roger.
I think the point here that I'm trying to make is that while we might be part of the communication plan, we want to know if we're part of the communications approach. And that if everything's already done and dusted and we see this again at another point where we can't offer any recommendations for draft, then it's probably already gone a bit too far. I think that if there's some kind of provision for us to be able to receive some information at a point where recommendations can still be accepted for that proposal, then that might help shape a more rounder approach to what might be the next steps.
Okay. Yep.
Noted. Tēnā koe, Roger. Councillor.
Yeah, just hei tāpiri atu ki tēnā. What I'm hearing from Rukuai and Papakipa is they're recommending to council, to you, Roger, Guy, aspects that the Far North District Council could pursue to develop and or enhance Māori capacity to contribute to council's decision-making process, which is part of our terms of reference. And I know I'm not preaching anything new here, but just for the benefit of the whare, that falls directly under our Local Government Act 81(1)(c), where we must provide relevant information to Māori for the purpose of Māori being able to take part in the decision-making process. So what I'm hearing is from our rangatira is a direction and a recommendation how we as council can enable Māori to be part of that decision-making process and not just receive it at the end once all the decisions are made. Right.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Just want to tautoko Matua Kipa's kōrero and to Rukuai's point around keeping us informed. Is there a way, Roger and Guy, perhaps that we can have a drop-in session online, maybe every Friday, to keep people up to date with what's going on, a kind of Q&A drop-in session? And also just to Matua Kipa's point about not underestimating our worth, is also we have community board members who took their roles up because they wanted to do better by their communities. So let's not forget that we've got those people out there too that can reach our places like Motuti and Mitimiti and Pawarenga, you know, those little communities that may get left out of the loop. So
Roger, I don't envy you in your role. You have a saying in Te Reo Māori, and it goes a little something like this: I wau nānu. And it doesn't say, the translation is really, really loose, but it's somewhere along the lines of, I feel sorry for you, but you are the right person for the job.
Well,
just a couple of notes here. Yeah, that would actually be good. So if we could actually have follow-up on drop-in sessions for everyone. Weekly would be really, really nice. I am putting my Auntie Hilda hat on right now, and she would say, you know what would be really cool? If we had one of those colourful flowchart thingies that tells us what's happening, at what time, what direction we're at, and what milestone we're at the moment, and then it falls down to our next process. And that's part of the communications and engagement that Rukuai may have been referring to as well, in terms of keeping everyone updated and normal speak as well. So I'd appreciate some comms and engagement around that for all of our whānau. When I think about the kōrero coming from Mata Wallace, I think about it's not just us here in council who have the power to send our ministers an email or try and call their phones. We all have that power. So let's go home, let's jump on our laptops or our computers or our phones, and let's all send the emails to Minister Watts for this direction that came out about a fortnight ago, expressing some of the concerns that you reiterated in our whare. Because let's not leave it up to our Te Kuaka committee or our full council committees to talk about these things. We have many mai here in the north. We have over 200 hapu. we have many whānau overseas as well who are looking to move back home and share the same or similar concerns. So te a tātou te mana kei roto i te kapu o tātou ringaringa. And hei haka kapinga māku, ko te haka tawaki o ko tātou rangatira, nā ko pita he whenena, me koro te āta haere. Move swiftly with intention.
It shows how important this kaupapa is that we're spending quite a bit of time on, and rightfully so. I think we need to use the mechanisms that we already have. We have te kahua taonui, we have te kuaka, we have kārearea, which are represented by our leaders of our communities. We don't have to try and come up with a plan on how we reach those three rōpū, reach our communities, every corner of our community. That's why we sit at these tables. So, Roger, I think, you know, those are key forums where we can seek some input into this. So we don't have to create something else. I think this table here, Tahua Tonu, Pārearea and Whangarei, because I see Kaipara isn't on board yet. So, but anyway, that was all. And maybe just a good note, I just tabled or gave a document to Guy, and I've asked Te Hono to pass on to Moko that we applied to become an iwi in the RMA process, and that was accepted. So it takes us up to another level of being able to engage in this whole RMA management system. I'll send a link to Te Whiu if they want to. What that does is, of course, triggers all of the other things from the council, being to start having a look at the mana whakahono agreements and all of those things, which again takes us to that higher level of being able to make some really good kōrero at these tables. So anyway, kia ora tata.
Thank you all for your pārtai and your kōrero. Those in favour of the item 5.3 say aye. Those against, abstentions, ka pai. That's carried. Thank you very much. It's 11:30. We've got two more items left on the table. I'm gonna push us through. We're gonna skip past 5.4 and leave that for as our last agenda item. I'm gonna go to 5.6, local waters done well. Ngā wai o tokero. This will be the update and FNDC at this very moment. Noting that we have an extraordinary council meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. for some of those who might be interested in jumping on or watching online. For that, can I have a move on? Kia ora, seconder.
Aye.
Councillor Allen. Okay, Charlie.
Mr. Chair. Morena koutou, ko Charlie Duncan Tapuangoa. I'm Group Manager for Corporate Services. We've had some kōrero in the past, just for those who aren't familiar with me. I'm helping to look after the local water done well.
Sorry, Charlie, I'll just jump in and just note to all of our whānau. So the kaupapa that Charlie's speaking to is not on our ordinary, it's on our supplementary agenda. Oh, on that, Charlie.
Mr. Chair. So the recommendation today is just to receive paper, and I'll provide a bit of a verbal update just in terms of the state of the program. As the Mr. Chair has suggested, there is an extraordinary council meeting tomorrow on the 20th for council to consider entry into the CCO. So with that in mind, things have been moving rapidly in this space. On the 1st of April, council endorsed the foundational docs, the legal agreements required for the three councils to create the CCO. So that's a shareholders agreement, which is an agreement between all three shareholders, Kaipara, Whangarei and Far North, and a constitution, which is the document governing the way the board of directors will run the company. and a transitional agreement, which is like an agreement on the next 12 months and how the company will be stood up, came a little bit later. That was commitment point 1. Commitment point 2 for Whānau District Council was on the 29th of April. At that point, Whāngarei and Kaipara had committed to joining the CCO, so they had approved the legal docs. Whānau District Council had reaffirmed, the commitment to working in partnership with the other councils, but at that point in time, Me Moko, through the elected member steering group, had requested some additional time to get a bit more mahi done in understanding the transitional, the schedules and the transitional agreement. So a bit more clarity around what was going to be delivered, the time frame, the budget, etc. Because the other 2 councils had committed at that point, Whangarei had also then elected to incorporate the company. That was completed on the 11th of May, so it is currently Northland Waters is on the company's office with Whangarei as the sole shareholder. Kaipara has resolved to join. The other 2 councils are now waiting on FNDC's decision tomorrow. At that point, if FNDC elects to join, it will be on the basis of equal decision-making rights in that business. So it's equal shareholding in decision-making shares with Class A shares, which is different to then the financial shares, which will be Class B, and will be contributed from all of the assets and liabilities that each council contributes over to that company. And so what that in effect means is the decision-making will be different to the size of each council contributing to that business. It will be a third decision-making. If council does not decide to participate, the constitution of the shareholders agreement allows for entry after that. But we enter into like a grey area around what comes next. Will the Department of Internal Affairs seek to press FNDC into that, and would the terms be the same? We're not in a position to speak to that at this stage. On the 5th of May, this feels like just last week, but the councillors had a workshop with the board, or the EAG at the time, now the board of the company, and there was some good kōrero around key matters of interest to FNDC elected members. So around the equity and control of the business, which I've already touched on, so that joint decision-making component. Investment prioritisation. So even though the Waters CCO has a higher debt limit and can borrow more money than each council individually, it's still a scarce resource and how that will be applied, given that we've got differences between the 3 districts of compliance, and the state of the network and the funding is quite different to the network in Whangarei, for example. So getting some clarity around the board's decision-making in regard of that. The financial structure, so local government funding authority borrowings, that will be extended to the CCO, separate from each council, but each council will be responsible for guaranteeing the debt that the CCO has. Financial ring fencing is a key element as well. So that is each district will be charged separately for the cost of providing services, much as they are currently under the 3 district councils, but there won't initially be any price harmonisation. But that will be considered within the first 3.5 years of the CCO being stood up. There will be consideration given to if a regional pricing model has merit, and it would then be by unanimous agreement from all 3 shareholders to agree to a change in pricing structure. Asset and land transfers were a key partai that were raised. Particularly, we have principles around that, so very high level considerations in the legal agreements. But there is a lot of mahi that will continue through that, and consideration that will need to be brought back to council. In some instances, transferring assets like land and plant is quite straightforward. When the legal title is clear, in some instances it's not. And we will only get into the being able to understand the detail of that when that work commences. Particular interest areas arose around things like reserves, the status of reserves, anything that might be subject to treaty claims, for example. We need to understand and work through that in short order over the next 12 months. The consensus, one of the board of directors members is a veteran Simpson Greason lawyer. I think the kōrero that came from him is everything is an agreement. So nothing is established until it is agreed across councils and the CCO. Operational benefits were discussed as well. So just the benefits of the regional scale of the CCO. It's a bigger business. It has focus purely on delivering water and wastewater services. So that focus is diluted across the rest of council's mahi. Council of Usage raised also around innovation, particularly some of the examples recently in the far north around work with working groups, deputations that were received recently to council in relation to electrocoagulation and other innovative solutions was raised and discussed with the board. Climate adaptation was also raised. So this is not prescribed in the foundational documents. The foundation documents are focused more purely around the technical elements of the company incorporation. There's not specific expectations raised in those agreements, given that as council under the elected member steering group went through the process of finding common ground, through the process of negotiating what went into those agreements, and there are different positions across the three councils. With regard to climate adaptation, that's not explicitly included. I'll touch on how that can be brought into the statement of expectations if that is the way council wishes to proceed. But there was also a general kind of expectation from the board that operating an infrastructure company of the scale that would be required to support Northland water and wastewater services, that generally there is alignment between the commercial reality of delivering services in a cost-effective way and reducing costs of things like carbon emissions. They tend to go hand in hand, so that would be part of what they consider the way of running that business. Community iwi hapu relationships were also discussed, particularly the concept existing relationships remain with the council. So there isn't an explicit transfer of relationships, but from council to the CCO, council retains the relationships with the community. However, council's in a position as a shareholder to provide expectations to the business about how it conducts its own relationships. So as a part of that, I carved that out with the exception of resource consent conditions attached to the resource consents. Those would transfer over and the CCO would be explicitly required to meet those for compliance requirements. But other elements were raised with the board or by the board, which they're considering at this stage around developing their own MOUs over time, potentially, and the possibility of iwi advisory to advise in terms of operations in that space as well. I guess then the key point for Far North District Council in considering the next steps is the statement of expectations as being the key tool that council has as a shareholder to deliberate on and deliver its expectations to the board in the way that they run the waters company. So we've set out on page 7 of the report some high level sort of points around the statement of expectations. Namely, it's required to be developed within 6 months of incorporation of the business. So that clock's already started. So there's a lot of work that needs to go into that, and it would be jointly agreed by all three councils to be adopted. There is some information within that statement of expectations which is required under the Act and is general to a CCO. but then the Act specifically allows for other elements to be included that are specific to water or wastewater services and specific to a district. So in that light, Far North District Council can consider the way it wishes the business to operate in the Far North as distinct to the rest of Northland. In the paper as well that you have in front of you, we've provided some examples. So there's a lot of CCOs which are going through this process now of developing these documents. But Andy's provided some examples for us. Selwyn is the first CCO, I think, in New Zealand to go live, or one of the first. They've provided some good expectations, which we've attached for consideration. And while Auckland Councils, it's a letter of expectations and it's a single council CCO with water care, they have some other explicit expectations in terms of the way that the board are expected to run that business as well. So should council choose to or vote to proceed tomorrow, the next step for council staff will be to commence the process of developing a draft statement of expectations with the other councils, but also elements that are specific to the Far North Roki that will need to be workshopped with elected members, and at the chief executive and the elected members' direction, there will be an expectation around engagement with communities to make sure that existing relationships are considered, how working groups, etc., will be considered as a part of that as well. And that will need to happen in quick order should council vote to proceed tomorrow.
Charlie. Thank you very much for your mahi. I'll open up the opportunity for questions.
Speechless.
Kelly, did you want to go as the mover of this motion?
I'll say one for the.
Councillor Allen, before you go.
Yeah, just repeating myself for the benefit of this committee, and that land transfer. Now, we have a very strong history of transferring land and never seeing it again, even after the purpose for which it was transferred for ceases. So that was a really poignant point for me to latch on and ensure that whenua remains with us for the purposes of treaty settlement, reserve, aharaini, and in talking with the advisory group, they said that they could look at lease options, so ownership remains with us. In our foundation documents, we can appoint one elected member and one non-elected member. That's going through a process at the moment, but currently that is what's in the foundation documents. And that's always been my preferred option, because I'd love to see, and I'm very unapologetic about that, but love to see Hapu Voice bring the expertise that are not in the skills matrix that says it is an expertise. So things like, I've already spoken about that. So currently the foundation document says one elected member, one non-elected member, and that's coming to our June meeting. And also Marlon, one of the 5 men of the advisory group, spoke about a mana whenua committee as part of the multi-layered approach. And that is another avenue that I would like to explore and how that can happen. He did mention the number of hapu we have in Te Taitokera and whether it was fair. But whether all hapu have the capacity to put a member forward is another thing. And also looking at those hapu members who come and do deputations all the time, advocating for wai, for the removal of discharge into wai,
those types of hapu members, I think, would be very beneficial in being part of that decision-making process. And so those are the three things that I continue to advocate and raise in our whare every time this kaupapa comes up.
Just the whātai, the Whānau District Council has really worked hard to understand the aspirations of te iwi Māori in this space. And do you see that the work being done to achieve some of those aspirations, will that at all be impacted by coming together in this way? How can we ensure that the priorities that this council has for water in our region remain priorities?
Trying to answer that through the chair. Thank you, Kuaka. I actually think this council's efforts in recent years on working with communities and making progress was strongly evidenced at that workshop on the 5th of May, two Mondays ago. And I'm going to thank Tanya actually for leading the charge here and improving our efforts at working with communities to get good outcomes. I think that message was loud and clear to the establishment of the board members that were here 2 weeks ago. And I very much doubt they're going to ignore that. In fact, I think they've taken it on board. So I actually think our efforts will be taken and built upon in this new CCO, water CCO. So I'm quite happy about that. And I think we will figure out how to express that in our letter or our statement of expectations when that's finalised.
In scoping what other councils are moving through with their processes, is there any intention to adopt, say, what the modelling of, say, Tāmaki with their current water system, natural water? Is there any intention to copycat existing operations in what we develop inside the NCO?
Chair, we're very fortunate that one of the board members of Marlin was Chief Customer Officer and CFO at Watercare, and he's got first-hand experience and has already mentioned some of the learnings that he would be able to bring to this entity. There is a requirement. Well, we will be, canvassing across the motu to see what other people are doing and trying to, present options to elected members to consider and how they'd like to see that progressed as well. So, we'll be casting the net quite wide, and it's incumbent on us to not only look broadly to understand what options are available and how they could be implemented, but then at an operational level about handing that baton over to not lose momentum in some of the key work that guys mentioned earlier as well.
The intent of the question is comparing apples with apples, obviously, and that includes administrative systems that are structured as well. The difference between Tāmaki, for example, and Taitokerau is just, it's just so different. And so administrative services, for example, might work in a more structured system of connectivity in Tāmaki. But here, we have 50% of some of our communities that are on septic, for example. And so I worry about the sustainability of a one-size-fits-all administrative system in the future, whether or not it would be sustainable for generally our community as a whole.
Answer a bit of that. So if I'd addressed your original question, I would have said that sort of different paradigm up here than Auckland. We don't have a large metropolis. The whole objective is quite different. Having said that, we do have urban centre in Whangarei. I think the challenge for this CCO and where they can benefit from water care and other entities is through common best practice, hopefully good systems that will become available across other entities, and innovation, I think, is the other big one. But outside of that, we have a unique challenge in the far north because we're very spread out with small population. So I think innovation is going to be super important. We have 16 wastewater treatment plants. How do we standardise? So they're not all the same, but how can we, what elements of those can be standardised and what innovation can we bring to that? And we're seeing that with our work with community groups, with the electrocoagulation trials, etc. So I think we will get better with the industry standards and the structure that's been set up. I think we'll get better transparency into innovation that's happening. I think it'll get shared around better. And hopefully just best practice will become the norm. But beyond that, I don't see we have so many commonalities with water care.
And hopefully no restrictions on the ability to fund it.
Restrictions on the ability to fund?
To fund any of it in the future. New technology is great.
Yes. Well, hopefully it's going to bring lower cost solutions is the pathway forward. I would hope that our asset management plans, when they've actually played out over a decade plus, that the debt on the CCO's books is far less than was originally anticipated. So I'm hoping they will find greater efficiencies in delivery and put our district in less debt than is forecast.
Just a question before I close. There is no set period of time for where FNDC staff step away from supporting those working groups?
Through the chair. So everything currently continues as business as usual until we get clarity around the staffing position and transfers over to the CCO.
The new company being, so they would have to have the resources in place and the relation, there'd be kind of a transitioning into that position. I just want to reflect back, thank you for that, Charlie. So this council consulted in a short period of time and got the mandate from the community to establish its own CCO. And one of the reasons was because of our strong relationships with iwi. And then there was a strong, legislation pushed through government to push us into this mega CCO. And the people that we are possibly appointing as directors tomorrow, we haven't done that yet, have said all the right things in the last few weeks to make us feel comfortable that those relationships and the systems that we have in place. They were in the room for Te Mauri o Te Wai's presentation, which I think was really helpful. But I think it's important, Chair, that we have some continued look-see into those board meetings to make sure that they are going to uphold and not ruin everything. There are mechanisms for us to step away from this, even after establishment, and it's been running for a while, and who knows what we'll look like. We might become our own unitary authority, and it might look better for us to have our own CCO back, in 2 or 3 years' time. But it's so important for all of the wastewater and drinking water supplies that I can think of affect mana whenua or on whenua Māori. And so those working groups are so important the conditions of the resource consent are so important because it won't be, well, the CCO and the council will be liable for breaches of those consent conditions. You might need to clarify that for me tomorrow, Charlie, a little on the spot. But yeah, another example of this.
I said last train. That's direct administration.
Kia ora, Kelly. Well, any other conversations that need to be had around this take, we can have it. We're going to have a break. Ka pai. Thank you, but thank you very much for your interest. We've had a move and a second. Those in favour of, say aye. Those against, abstentions, ka pai. That's carried. Ko te ingoa o tēnei komiti ko te kuaka. E rangi ko taku puku e orite ki te kune kune. Kia aloha mai. We need to take a break. I'm conscious that so we'll have a quick lunch is available.
Oh, sounds good.
Ka pai. Well, we're going to have lunch. We'll have a 30-minute break. And then we've got one more agenda item to attend to. Hopefully, ka mutu Māori ta tata mihi tēnei rā. Orera, ka preki tata, if I can ask you to pause our. Okay.